Good afternoon, Commissioner Riley. How are you doing today?
Oh, he must have fallen off.
Hello, Anthony.
Good afternoon, friends. I'm walking downstairs. I'll be stationary in just a moment.
No problem.
No
How are
worries.
you, Travis? Scott?
I'm doing well. Doing well.
Well, thank you.
I'm here though, and I can hear you.
Okay. Well, I saw that I thought we were going to have one of the alders with us today, but it looks like they weren't able to make it.
Yeah. Daniela is not rescheduled. She was going to be the one, I think, right? No. So do we have other attendees other than Eddie Roth?
Yes, there are two. There's David Steele and Nancy Thompson,
Great.
according to Zoom.
And are they just public attendees?
They are.
Great. Perhaps I do have one question to pose to my two fellow work group commissioners,
Yeah.
but it would be interesting to hear any questions that those attendees have for us, I think.
Recording in progress.
No.
I believe that they're able to ask questions through the chat, possibly.
Very nice. And there's Christine and Gracia. Let's give a big St. Louis welcome.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for the warm welcome. I want to make sure all of you saw my message that Alderwoman Velasquez was not able to join.
Yes.
Okay.
And it looks like David Steele is simply observing, but he used the Q&A to respond to that. So glad to have observers.
Thank you, David. So the question I have then for Anthony and Travis is, it seemed like as we talked through our recommendations, there was a tremendous amount of buy-in from everybody. The only two issues that struck me that we're have difficulty with is the at-large issue, which we never defined, and I think it would be fine for us to take out, although I wanted to bring it up. And then the second one is to soften or to make return to the or retain the criteria now for aldermanic recall, because a number of the alders, of course, voiced concerns about it, but there was also concern among our fellow commissioners in our last meeting about it. And it's just, I think that, you have a recall, you can recall it, that happens quite a bit, quite frankly. So I think if we just take that out and let that part stand, I'm happy with that if you guys are.
Yeah, I'm happy with that. I think I agree with both of those. I think keeping the recall parameters the same, and then because we don't have a plan forward or a path forward on the at large, I would rather just remove it. Maybe that could be something that the Board of Aldermen or the City Council, whatever it ends up being called, can look at at the next round of reform of that body, or the next commission can take a look at that.
Okay, so I'll make those changes, reissue it to both you, obviously, both of you as part of my group, and I'll copy all the other commissioners that we've amended this. So
I will concur. The question I wanted to raise is around asking the city council persons to have no other full-time employment. Is that a charter issue? Is that an ordinance? Where does that lie if we were to consider that topic, which was raised also earlier in the year?
It can be done through ordinance. I mean, it's something that we talked about doing and kind of tried to make a thing whenever we raised the salaries, when we reduced from 28 to 14 electeds and went from $37,000 per salary to 72. It didn't have the votes to pass it the way some of us wanted to in terms of requiring, full time. And I think the idea was that we would always want people to be able to do something like teach a class or do something, but that generally speaking, the focus would be here at City Hall. So I know it can be done via ordinance, but it certainly could be something that's contemplated to be put into the charter as well.
I would almost prefer it to be ordinance based, just because that, economic factors within can change at any given moment. And there may need to be it may be a reason why our elected officials need outside employment. But I'm open to it. I mean, I think that this should be their full-time job and their primary focus. And we are now paying a much more competitive and better wage.
While
Then we,
while we're talking, I'll pull up the ordinance that we passed when the salaries got raised. I think there's like an hour, like you're supposed to be working as an alder person for say 30 hours a week. Now in practice, I think it's difficult to enforce that because we don't really know. It's not like people are punching in and out at a time clock. And I know that there are some electeds who do have outside employment. So it's not exactly being followed to its intent. So I think that's something else to consider. But I do tend to agree with you, Travis. When you put it in the charter, there's a lot less wiggle room than an ordinance.
And Christine, how do raises happen? Is it cost of living increases like other city employees, or what happens over time?
I can't remember how long it had been. I think it was like the 1980s or 1990s when that $37,500 was the salary that was decided upon, and it's incumbent upon right now, it's incumbent upon the legislators themselves to raise their salary. It's not like this civil service process.
Very good, thank you.
Scott, I know that one of our recommendations had to do with the the charter commission itself and making it more of a standing body versus is it diennial, if I can remember my my terminology correctly. I'm trying to remember back to how that discussion went, but I didn't really see a lot of discussion around that, or remember a lot of discussion at the commission meeting last time, one way or another.
Yeah, oh no, there was, and we didn't specify anything, we just said that it would be ongoing. And it didn't seem like people were opposed to that, but they wanted some rules around it, and I just don't know what would be a good rule, I mean, I don't think for the three of us, we necessarily want to be tethered to commissionership for the next 9 years. Although maybe. Yeah. Maybe
I would agree, but then
celebrate.
to have to elect a new body every year to then relearn what we've gone through, study for the last year, that also would seem to be cumbersome and not an effective way to move forward. So you need some group committed to the work at some interval, but every 10 years is it's a long time.
So what if we move to like a 3 or 4 year appointment? And then with still from mayoral appointment, would that make sense?
If it's helpful, I can't remember if it was Seattle or Portland that I spoke to. And their charter commission met for 2 years, which they thought was enough time. I had interviewed people in Kansas City, Webster Groves, a handful of places. And most people thought that the time they had was not, like, a year wasn't enough, and 2 years seemed reasonable.
Yeah.
And then have that interval be every 10 years with somebody who is kind of the keeper of information for the next charter commission who comes in, to not have to recreate all of the research, for example, like you have all done in this particular session. Of course, that's, up to interpretation in terms of what you all would be interested in doing. I think there's value in having it be a longer period of time to contemplate changes, and I think it's thoughtful to be wanting to make sure that's getting passed down. But I do think, maybe every 5 or 10 years meeting to do this kind of work makes sense. You don't want to be changing the charter constantly.
I think one, just speaking from, as we've been living this for the last 9 months or so, 8 or 9 months, I think 1 year is just too short of a time frame to have the first, just the group formation and the personalities and challenges that come with getting to know each other as 9 individuals, and then the lack of structure to run this forward as a body, because there is no real easy playbook to follow. I still think it could be every 10 years, but I think it should be a 2-year window for the work to get done. So that you could spend a full year in doing a lot of research, having a lot of the hearings, having the testimony, and the experts come in, doing a lot of, and then a full year of socializing and community engagement to follow before they end up on a ballot. That would be my recommendation.
Be all
And then
in
that also
2-year
then,
term with 10-year appointment. Yeah, perfect.
yeah. But I think that also, to Commissioner Crossland's point that she's made a few times, allow a lot of the other changes that need to take place or might take place to happen at the ordinance level, and not necessarily think of everything as a charter commission modification or amendment.
Great.
Thank you for sharing that. And so people don't think this is self-serving, I would say our commission doesn't have to be a part of that. Like, it could, we're operating under the conditions that exist when we were appointed, but this would be a go forward. Christine, to your point, it's passing down to the next body that's appointed to do this work.
Anthony, are you okay with the 10-year appointment, 2-year term, each 10 years? All right, so I'll make that change as well.
Now, how does that proposal align with what Jasmine's recommending?
I'm not sure of that.
Those are change as well, and I'll go
I'll
around.
pull that up while you guys talk. I'll pull it up and pop it in the chat.
I thought that hers, and thanks for pointing that out, but I tend to remember that her proposal was more about representation on commissions, not as much about duration. That it was I think her recommendation was that every ward would have a representative on every board and commission within the city. And so that I think ours is more about duration versus representation.
Yeah, so what she was saying is that every board and commission would have 14 members directly appointed by the alders. So. I don't think there's enough room at City Hall for all those folks, so. See.
We're definitely out of space.
Yeah.
Might need to put an addition on the building.
We can make it more of a skyscraper effect. That would be a nice look.
Good use for the AT&T building. So. The AT&T building can just hold all boards and commissions.
We'll get sued by the Enterprise Center for imposing on their signage. Um,
Anything else that's top of mind or that we need to discuss today?
No, I'll make those changes over the weekend and send them, as I normally do on Sunday, to all of the commissioners from the three.
Okay. Great.
Thank you, Scott.
Pleasure. And gents, let me just say that as we get closer here, it has really been a pleasure to work with you guys. So, and you
I like
Chris,
this.
as well.
I like this group.
Yeah, I like us a lot. In fact, I think we should all buy a house somewhere and hang out a lot. It'd be great.
AT&T building or just
Yeah, perfect. There you go, Travis. Yeah.
that way it's mixed use.
So, all right.
All right, anything else we need to discuss or should we adjourn? All
I
right,
think-
and yeah, and just also thank you to David, Jerry, and Nancy from the public participating. Really glad that you're all. Before we adjourn, though, just open it up one last time. Are there any questions from the members of the public that are listening in? I know
Well,
David already mentioned that he was.
While we thank you to Director Christina Gracia for all your support and help throughout this process. You have been an ally, a supporter of all that we have needed. Appreciate your very unbiased opinion and giving us all sides to consider and to work through this. We couldn't have done this without you. So thank you.
Yeah, it's been really fun to work with y'all.
And for somebody so young, Christine, you have a grasp of history. It's impressive.
I'll take all of the flattering comments today. Thank you very much. Appreciate you guys. I'm going to take off. Have a great day.
All right, take care, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Take care.
Take care, guys. Bye-bye.